Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Daniel. I'm a PhD student at the University of Chicago and a fellow at CEPDeR. And before beginning, I want to say a special thanks to the head of the department for the hospitality for this opportunity to present today. I want to thank Dr. Gershon, the chair of CEPDeR, for his hospitality. Also throughout the past years. Thank you so much. And also want to thank the international office and their staff for their hospitality and how welcoming they've been. I have to extend a special thanks to Professor Ogun for hosting me several times at Covenant, and all this research would not have been possible without his help. And so I'm very grateful for that, and thank you so much. So today I'm very excited to talk about there will be some preliminary results of a project that I've been conducting here at Living Faith. And really what I'm interested in is what are the consequences of joining a Pentecostal denomination, of joining a Pentecostal Christian denomination. And I want to spend the beginning of this talk to try to convince you why is that an interesting and important question. Here on the screen, what we see is in thousands is the number of Christians globally by denomination. The black solid line here is Catholics, and the red dashed line here is Pentecostals. And Pentecostalism has had experienced a tremendous growth over the past 100 years, and especially since the 1970s, 1980s. The growth rates has been astonishing. Many individuals have joined various Pentecostal denominations, and the growth rates are so strong that Pentecostalism is projected to exceed the number of Catholics. So it's clearly something that is appealing to people and that is globally important. I also want to highlight that the center of Christianity clearly has been shifting towards Africa. And if you look at this figure here, this shows the number of Christians by geographic region. And we see again, Africa, the red dashed line here, has already exceeded the number of Christians in Europe, and is projected to exceed and to widen this gap even more. So the center of Christianity clearly has been and will even more be cemented to be in Africa. And so these two facts combined, I think, makes it very, very, very clear why should we care about Pentecostalism and African Pentecostalism in particular. It's something that is very important on a global scale. We have many people who join, and so asking what are then the implications of this global movement, and particularly in Africa. And so what I really want to do in this project is what are the effects of joining the Living Faith worldwide denomination as a case study of the Pentecostal denomination in Africa. And what I know that maybe some results from Nigeria, they are not applicable in other contexts. I think they can give us some sense and some idea of how to think about different cases, about different denominations, about different countries in a somewhat similar context. So this is very much work in progress. And so ultimately, why I would like to focus on what are the effects of joining a denomination. Today, I'll focus on what is the effect of being invited to join this denomination. Think about talking to a person who is doing outreach on the street. If you talk to the person and they invite you to join, ultimately, we're interested in what is the effect of joining, but today, what is the effect of this conversation? What is the effect of outreach? What is the effect of being invited to join this denomination? And I want to measure this on various outcomes. There's clearly something that we can't measure, the strength of some individual and how much they believe. And I want to abstract from all of that, and that all exists, but I don't think we have a good sense of how to measure that and how to quantify that. And I don't want to attempt to do that. What I want to do is I want to measure the things that we can measure. And so that is like religious activity, some sort of agency, how much you think you are in control of your own life, how much you attribute to God. I want to look at mental health and labor supply and income. At the end of the talk, I also want to talk a little bit about and show you some graphs of like what motivates people to join the denomination in the first place. What makes it more likely for people to follow through on this invitation to join Living Faith? Maybe what are some of their motives? To give you a preview of the results, what I find is, this invitation to join Living Faith matters. It matters for people. I find that labor supply increases. I find that religious engagement increases. The sense of agency maybe slightly decreases. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when I come to that. And it also matters for the church. The probability in 6 months, 5 to 6 months of joining the Living Faith denomination approximately doubles. So it's really important and impactful for the church as well. And joining this the denomination, like it makes it more people who are what happened now? Okay. Okay. Good. So if people are approached by the outreach team with very concrete reasons, with very concrete motifs, it makes it more likely to join the church. So I think people are more likely to join the church for like very concrete reasons. Okay, so much about the big picture. What we want to talk about now. Okay, briefly about the context, about the data collection that I did, and then about these two aspects: being invited to join the church and what makes people more likely to join. I also want to emphasize at this point. I know there's a Q&A at the end, but if you have any clarifying questions, please feel free to ask at any point. I want to briefly say like how I think this fits into the existing literature. And so, there's some economic literature that looks at what is the effect of religiosity. There are some papers, for example, Solar finds that political affiliation is affected by your religiosity. This paper finds that mental health is affected potentially by religiosity. We find that Murphy et al. Find that networks change, like the people you interact with, that has implications through religion. Brian et al. Find, for example, that income and labor supply might change when religion changes. It also speaks to literature that looks at the motivations for engagement, and most of these papers find that people tend to turn to religion more in times of crisis. There are some papers on religious conversion, which I also think my paper can make a small contribution to. Okay, the context. I want to start by thinking about, okay, why is religion hard to study? So, studying religious engagement is very difficult because of the degree of selection. People choose which denomination to attend. People choose how often to go to church. And so there's selection. People do this voluntarily. And why does this matter and why does it make it difficult? Because it creates potentially a selection bias. Because people who attend church often, it may be very different compared to people who basically do not attend church. Yeah, and this could be for various reasons. Like I can speculate. They can obviously have more faith. Maybe they're also more likely to plan ahead and follow a schedule that I set. Like, if you want to go to church on Sunday, you have to be free during that time. And then maybe people who go to church regularly, they are better able to plan ahead to do that. And so this ability, for example, would also be profitable in business setting, right? If you're more able to plan ahead to follow your schedule, you're more likely to succeed in your business. Or think about if someone is sick and can't go to church, and someone is healthy enough to go, and we would establish correlations between church attendance and health, and we would find a positive impact but really it's not because people go to church, but people who are sick can't go to church in the first place. That makes it difficult to study religion, because we cannot compare people who attend and who do not attend. We cannot compare people who are religious to people who are not religious. And this is the case because these correlations would not give us the causal estimate. Like, what is the effect of being religious? What is the effect of attending church? What is the effect of being invited to join church? But ultimately, these causal effects is what we are interested in, really. And so that's why studying religious engagement is somewhat difficult. And that's why I've been cooperating with the Living Faith denomination here. And in particular, what have I been doing? I cooperated with their outreach team. And so I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the activities, so to make sure we are all on the same page. So the Living Faith denomination has like a team of around 50 full-time employees whose job it is to gain new members to join the church. And so they go out in the morning to like areas close by and talk to people, invite them to join the church, hand in flyers about the service. And then in the afternoon, they follow up with on the phone with the phone numbers they collected from people they talked to. And so I cooperate with the outreach team. They were so kind to share their data, their contact details with me. And I use this outreach as a quasi-random incentive to join the church. It's like a nudge. It's like nudge to join the church. You're being invited, so you're more likely to attend the church. Yeah? And I mimic this work and create a control group, which hopefully, now I try to convince you of this, is comparable to the treatment group. So we have two groups, treatment and control, and they're comparable. And one of the groups, the treatment group, receives the invitation to join the church. And so this is how I will convince you to, like, how we can go around this fundamental problem of doing inference that is caused by this selection bias, that people voluntarily and freely can choose that they want to attend a service, church, and join a denomination. Good. Let me talk about the data collection, unless there are any questions at the moment. No questions? Good.
We have a control group and a treatment group. So what's the makeup of, how would we define the control groups? The people who just conduct the church.
I'll come to this in detail. Okay. The important thing is, people in the treatment group received this invitation to join the church by the outreach team. People in the control group did not. Okay. And I'll on the next slide, I will tell you exactly how I'm doing this now. So to be very clear, the treatment group or treatment assignment group, how I call it here, is I rely on the Living Faith outreach activities. So their outreach team goes out and approaches people in the street. They invite them to join the church and collect the contact details. They follow up with the people to reiterate this invitation. And they share this contact details with me. And so what I did is I hired a team of enumerators. They used these contact details to then survey the people who had been approached by the denomination, by the Living Faith outreach team. That's a treatment group. So I want to mimic this process, this sort of selection. So what do? I hired people who used to work in the outreach team, who don't work there anymore, but they used to. So they are familiar with the procedures. They're familiar with how to approach people in the street, with what the outreach team is doing. And I instructed them to mimic the work that they do, talk about approach people in the street, but don't invite them to join a church, and instead offer the chance to win a Bible, enroll people in a Bible lottery. Yeah. So They also talk to people in the street about Christianity, about God. There's no invitation of joining living faith. There's no mention actually of living faith. Instead, there is the Bible lottery offer, because that would induce people to also give their contact details. People had to give their contact details to enroll in the Bible lottery, and so we could use those contact details to follow up with individuals. So basically, what I try is like mimic this process at every step. So approaching people in the street, outreach team, former outreach team members, talking about Christianity. The former members also do that. The only difference is, instead of inviting people to join church, they offer the Bible lottery. Yeah, and so that's the treatment and control group. And I want to argue that, with these steps, this creates two groups that are very similar and comparable, except for the fact that one of the groups is invited to join the living faith services. We did 2 rounds of data collection. The initial outreach by living faith, and then constructing the control group was done in June and July last year, and we followed up with people immediately after. So before the members of the treatment group could actually join living faith, before they could join the service, we followed up immediately over phone, and then we had a second data collection in November, December to see if something changed in the treatment group compared to the control group. We did it with phone surveys, using the phone numbers that we got. We have a sample of around 1,000 individuals in the treatment group, 220 around in the control group. Okay, we had some attrition, 10% of people we couldn't reach for a second time, they took out of the sample. These numbers are only for people that we could reach twice, that we could follow up with. Okay, this is the survey data that I collected. I supplement this data with some living faith church records, because their office, they track the process and progress of the outreach team. They follow themselves up with individuals they talk to check if they actually attend the service. So this is a much larger sample, around 33,000. But here we don't have any demographic information, we don't have any survey information. The only thing we have about these individuals is if they attended the service after being approached by the outreach. And so the first data, the survey data, will be used to think about the impact of after joining or after being invited to join the church. Second data source will be used at the end to think about people's motivation to follow through on this invitation. And I made a lot of fuss about the comparability of the treatment and control group, and it seems they're pretty balanced on observables. So these are some summary statistics. Treatment group in this panel, control group here, they're balanced on observables. The sample, female, around 36% compared to 39%. Age, around 32 to 31. Schooling index, this is schooling index here, 3.2 to 3.28. They're very similar, and this is going through all different margins. I was working on a typical day, 7.7 to 7.6. Income, also very similar. 110 naira, 110,000 naira per month to 112,000 naira per month. Very similar between treatment and control group. And also their religious activity is very similar. We asked about how much people report praying per day. 1.6 hours compared to 1.5 hours. How many hours they spend in church on Sunday? 3.9 and 3.9. Okay. And also we asked the third item here is what is called the God Health Locus of Control score. It's an index. It asks people how much they think they are in control of their own health compared to how much God is in control of their own health. That ranges from 0 to 30. So 21, 22 is like on the higher end of the scale, but very similar. P-values essentially always, the differences are not statistically significant. So very similar treatment and control group, also on observables. Okay. Good. Now, what can I estimate with this? Any questions before I proceed? Yes.
In your survey data,
It is so mostly like clarifying question. Otherwise, like clarifying question or
clarifying.
okay.
Yeah, you said that you obtained data between July and June and July, then November and December.
Yes.
What was happening between those 3 months?
So I'll come to this. So essentially, what we want to do is like we had established the sample, we constructed treatment and control group, and then some people joined living faith, some people attended regularly, and we let people like live their life, and after 5 to 6 months, we followed up and asked, have you been attending living faith? Have you gone there? What is your denomination now? And we wanted to see if some of the barriers in summer income change, if something else changed, and the groups are so observable at baseline. Yeah, and the only difference between treatment and control is if they receive this invitation. So the idea is they join the denomination, and that induces a change. Okay. Good. Now, a little bit technical, but not too much. I try to keep it very low. What do I want to estimate? The effect of ZI, which is a binary indicator about the error term. What do we need to assume? We need to assume that the conditional expectation is equal to 0, right? So the expectation of of epsilon I conditional on observables is equal to 0. What does this mean in practice here in this setting? It means that what I said at the beginning, there must be no selection into the treatment group or into the control group. It must be quasi-random which individual received the invitation and which did not. That is why I went through this whole intricate process of mimicking the process of trying to establish comparable groups. Okay? And one gets the invitation, the other not. But there's no selection. And then it means there's, there must be no correlation between yi and epsilon I, which means there are no other factors in the treatment and the control group that would affect y. Okay? So the only difference between treatment and control group is the invitation to join the church. And that's why I try to convince you that they are comparable, they're balanced on observables, there's no real difference except for this invitation. Because we need to make this assumption to think about this as a causal. Okay? If you believe me, and if you buy this assumption, and if you think, my design is sufficient for doing this, what do I find? Now, some tables. First, effect of being invited to join the church. First line here always is like approached by LF outreach team. That is what I use for being invited to join the church. Effect of religious engagement. You basically see no effect on the number of, which maybe is what we would expect. People are already praying. They are a member of a different religion, so they pray. What we find, however, is the number of religious activities that people attend increases by 0.5 per week. So how should you think about this? So activity here means everything from Sunday service to midweek service to fellowship meeting, study groups, everything that is happening with the denomination that you attend. And so being approached by the outreach team increases these number of activities by 0.5 per week. Okay. What we also find is there's a slight increase in this God health locus of control scale. What I explained earlier briefly. We see an increase in income, does not increase, labor supply seems to increase substantially. How about mental health and well-being? Basically no effect here, and that I thought was quite surprising. My hypothesis was that joining a new denomination had increases in benefits for people's mental well-being and mental health. So basically, we find no effect. The PHQ-2 score is a standard score to evaluate depression-like symptoms in individuals, and basically no effect. Also, people don't think differently about the future or the next year. We asked if people are thinking that the next year will be a good year. or that, how certain people are about the future, to assess the optimism, their well-being, and basically no effect. Okay. So to summarize these findings, basically we find that being approached by an out-of-stream member, being invited to join the Living Faith denomination has effects on labor supply, no effect on income. We see some effects on like the weekly numbers of church activities that people attend. We also see a slight decrease in how people perceive their agency compared to like how much they think they're in control compared to how much they think God is in control. And basically no effect on mental health. Okay. Any questions on this? Otherwise, we got like 5 more minutes roughly. I'll
I was thinking the tables you just presented, the results, just showed whether they are the significance of the level of significance by using asterisks without
Yes.
showing the actual figure in the results.
What do you mean the actual figure?
The level of significance.
It says
Where
here.
you have those, okay, for instance, the
Here it says
one where you have 3 asterisks.
is P is like significant at 1%. Yeah.
I was expecting we would see the figure there, probably 0.01, as part of the result presented.
The actual significance.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, I don't have that. I usually do it just by with stuff. It's easier to see. So
I don't.
no, I'm not done. But I would like to.
As a list of questions here, say why you're checking.
No.
Okay, why is the question here on the charts?
Yes.
Well, one is from the show. Say, I'm wondering if and how the large disparity between the number of participants in the treatment and control groups affects the results, and what was done to check for this.
So basically, the differences in the numbers were done due to power reasons, because ultimately what I think matters for people and for outcomes is who actually join Living Faith. So there's not too many to do some quantitative analysis, and so that's why the design was to maximize individuals in the treatment group.
Okay. The second one here, that's from Kinde Mary Bello. Say thank you for your wonderful presentation, sir. My question is from why is this a problem? People who attend churches often might be fundamentally different from those who do not attend church. Can you explain what you mean by fundamental difference? Kindly shed more light on this. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay, let me share so you can see.
Should I answer this or should I go ahead?
Okay, so like share from here. Share from here now. Yeah. Share. Yeah. Just go ahead. Very good.
It didn't work.
It's work. But that's sort of explanation.
He removed the.
Okay.
He removed the USB stick. Okay, good. Then I would continue and like take a question at the end. This one. Okay.
Yeah, that's from kindly Mary Bello.
Yeah.
Is there thank you for your presentation. Why is this a problem?
Okay.
People who attend churches often might be fundamentally different from those who do not attend church. Can you explain what you mean by fundamental difference? Can you shed light on this?
Okay. Should I answer this now or like should I continue and take this at the end?
Yeah, well, sure.
Okay. Then let me continue and then do this at the end. Okay. Okay. I want to briefly talk about what motivates people to maybe join. If we can like draw some inferences on that. And what I do here is I use the fact that the services change every Sunday. The motif, the topic changes every Sunday, and while it follows like some pattern for like someone who is not very affiliated with the church, it looks like as if quasi-random. So there, there's no systematic pattern in this if you're not very familiar with the denomination. And so the outreach team uses these topics to approach people in the street. So they talk about the service and the topic of the service. So it's something that's like very salient in these conversations that the outreach team has with individuals when they try to invite members or like new members to join. And so I group these motifs, these topics into different motifs, and then estimate what is the effect of being approached with a different motif. And like, does it make a difference if, for example, like I tell you, today the service is about wealth and financial breakthrough, which I classify as like wealth related, or does it make a difference when I tell you, come to join church today, like on Sunday the service is about the day of healing or health in general. These are some differences that I want to quantify if it matters for people's probability to attend the church. And so also I need some assumption. I need again that the outcomes of individuals if they join a church are independent of the motifs that they are approached with, conditional on an outreach team member. So what does it mean in practice here? It means that individuals or outreach team members should not target different individuals with different motifs. Yeah, I think you are very likely to respond to family, but not to wealth. What this assumption rules out is that the outreach team targets members differently, new members differently, with the different motifs. Okay, we need this again to assume away selection. Okay, and if you again believe this assumption, what can we estimate? Simple linear regression again, where yi in this case is binary and is an indicator if an individual actually shows up to the Sunday service after being approached by the outreach team. Yeah, and then we have beta m here is the effect of motif m, and we control for outreach team members' effects because like different outreach team members may be differently suited and like successful in getting people to join. So we control for this, and what we're interested in here is beta m. Beta m, the effect of a different motif. Yeah, and I classify motifs as wealth, health, family, and divine intervention. And I estimate the effect of these very concrete motifs in relation to a more general topics like, for example, like Covenant Day or Open Doors. I classify as like, a very general team that is not very specific. And so I estimate these effects relative to general teams. Okay. And what do I find? People do respond differently to concrete topics. So this is the point estimates with their standard errors, 95% confidence interval. And I control for the green dots, I control for arbitrary member effects. In the orange diamonds, I don't, but it doesn't matter. The results are very, very similar. And what I find is that it's statistically significant at a 95% confidence level. If people are approached by a topic of divine intervention, people are around 1% more likely to join the church on the following Sunday. If they're approached by the topic health, that is health related, the service is health related, they are around 3% more likely to join the church on the following Sunday. Yeah, these are huge effects, given that the margins are small. Yeah, remember, like the initial probability to join the church on average was like 6%. So a 3.3% increase is a huge margin. For family and wealth, there's some indication that maybe people respond more to these concrete motives, but they're not statistically significant, at least at a 5% significance level. And so with this, I want to conclude by wrapping up and highlighting that, I think, studying Pentecostalism, especially African Pentecostalism, is very important. It is hard to study. And my design, in cooperation with the Living Faith denomination, allows for some causal estimates, allows to argue that some of the things that the estimate are actually causal. And while baseline religious engagement is high, the invitations to join the church matter. And converting to Living Faith matters. And it seems that people, though, are more likely to join and follow through on this invitation for concrete reasons compared to more general things. And with this, I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the little bit of Q&A. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You have your seats and others' questions, so that at the time you will be able to attend to all the questions.
Okay.
Is that okay by you?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, thank you so much once again, Daniel, for that scintillating presentation, taking us through the causes and implications of the Pentecostal movement, evidence.
Fascinating presentation.
All right, so using Living Faith Church as a case now, of course, now we have the opportunity of making comments, and you want to make comments, you want to ask your questions. Of course, you are free. Our listeners or watching us online, joining online, and those attending the physical meeting can also please make their comments. I don't know where to start. Okay, Professor Legesa.
Yes, thank you. Hello?
Yes, sir. Your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We're hearing you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Daniel, for the presentation. I think I have 2 points of worries. Number one is the title itself. The presenter was talking about determinants. Okay, and implications. This area of research is a very sticky one now. Because what brought a lot of us to church is the issue of our salvation. Abi? That's what brought us to church, is the issue of our salvation. every other things are dara, as we are always told in the church, is that depending on who you are and what you want, is which determines a lot of things for you. So I think it's better to review the title. Well, the convention is to say that I just listen to the presenter. I don't have details of what he's doing, so I cannot tell you. Number two is that in doing the regression, I think there's a place that was regression analysis. And I could see that there are several dependent variables. You understand? And which, in all cases, only one variable was used to capture what the presenter was talking about. For me, once you are talking about regression and you are limiting yourself to only one independent variable, there's already problems there, because nothing can be explained by only one variable. That's the fact of life. Nothing, I say nothing can be explained by only one variable. Now, because we live in a very complex world, and that's the issue when you are not talking about whether a variable is significant or not. It's because ab initio you are talking about several variables to explain the phenomenon in question. So you now look at the power of each of them in explaining the phenomenon. And then, because this primary data and living faith is spread all over the world, so it would be good to know where the concentration is in collecting your data and some other things around that, so that we are not ab initio biased by the result. Okay? So I think that's just small worries I have, preferably because I didn't have access to the full job, perhaps most of my concern will have been attended to. So thank you so much. And well done. I wish you better advance in this research work, which is not a it's not one that people can just dabble into. When you are talking about religion and individual, they are always very complex. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments.
You take more of yourself.
Let me answer this.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Regarding the first point, I agree. There are many things that leads people to join denominations and religions, and that drive people to different religions. And I think I mentioned this at the beginning, that there are some things that we can't measure and that I want to abstract from, like the faith, for example. But there are a few things that we can measure that may have, like, some effect at the margin for some people. And I think that is like what I speak to. So this is not to say that there are other things that this is not to say that there are no other things that matter. On your second point, with having only one independent variable in the regressions, trying to convince you that my treatment and control group is very similar and is comparable on observables, and the only difference is an assumption.
Okay. So, yeah. I joined Pentecostal living faith. We are talking about your salvation. We are talking about your prosperity. Abi? We are talking about what you do. Salvation, prosperity, health.
The choice.
Yes,
of
yes.
just one country, Nigeria, or living faith in outside as a choice.
Okay.
Because to use that one sample as a basis of judgment for all Pentecostal churches, I don't know.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. I mean, I would have liked to have like a bigger sample, no question. It is logistically very challenging to do primary data collection in different places. First. Second, I think I also mentioned this at the beginning. I think that, yes, not everything may be applicable in all different contexts, but I think, having some estimates of like a very big Nigerian and like West African Pentecostal denomination in a reliable setting and like in a convincing setting can allow us to like potentially like get some idea of how things are at different places. And I also said like I don't want to overgeneralize these results. I think these results clearly speak to African or West African Pentecostalism in particular. And I think I try to motivate why I think this is important at the beginning. Does this answer your question?
Okay, next.
Sorry, as a follow-up to our question, I want to still make a suggestion concerning the topic, since you just focused on living faith church. Why not just say evidence from living faith church Nigeria rather than evidence from Nigeria? Because, like she said, there may be slight differences in what makes people to go to church in different denominations. So that's just my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted.
Okay, more questions? Okay.
Question.
Can I ask a question? Please, what does GHLC mean? Can I ask a question? GHLC, does that mean God our level of control?
Not the system.
Oh yes, that was the God Health Locus of Control. God Health Locus of Control score. There was this index of like how much you think you are in control of your own health compared to how much you think God is in control of your own health.
Because it's
Okay, more questions as a plan to.
have millions. So how many millions they can no. Yeah.
Hello, can I ask, I have just one question.
Okay, 1 minute, sir. We'll come to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. Just to add to what others
Someone's
have
online.
said.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Well,
Okay,
go
okay,
ahead.
thank you, sir.
Yes,
When you look at the Pentecostal movement in Nigeria, I'm worried that you are only focusing on a living faith church.
1 minute,
Because
sir.
each of the denomination in the Pentecostal,
Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel.
they have their focus is not the same.
Go ahead, sir. Well,
You have some that focus on prosperity, some focus on holiness. So I'm wondering why the choice of living faith out of all the Pentecostal churches, and then you talk evidence from Nigeria. They have their focus is not the same. So you have some that focus on prosperity, some focus on holiness. So I'm wondering why the choice of living faith out of all the Pentecostal churches, and then you talk evidence from Nigeria. They have their focus is not the same. So you have some that focus on prosperity, some focus on holiness. So that's my question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Repeat
Let's
yourself.
take it. Use my. Oh, take it there.
Don't repeat yourself. Go to work. Go to work.
Go ahead.
The system was only repeating.
So that's my question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Then I can answer right now. Or- Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so like the gold standard would be to do an experiment, but you can't really like experiment with people like forcing them to go to church or forcing them not to go to church. And so that makes it very like I think super unethical to do like an experiment around this topic. And so that's why I was relying on quasi-experimental method, saying that like this outreach is quasi-random if I establish a sufficiently similar control group.
Random candidacy.
Because I think it would be unethical to run an experiment. And so that's why
Topic would that be
I
right?
was relying on
No, you are correct now.
saying that like this outreach is quasi-random if I establish a
What
sufficient.
about
Okay, so this
living
other person was
let him
asking-
say living faith in his
Remove evidence
Why-
from the area.
Church, there's many, but if you check CSCs, you get thousands and thousands and thousands of Nigeria.
conclusion based on living faith.
Why are you not only living faith church out of one among so many?
Basically, the answer is primarily logistical. Here, I had a setting where I think I can convincingly get some cause and estimate. I can rely on the team. I know exactly how they're doing the outreach. I can construct a control group that I think is giving me some causal estimates. And I think that is much, much better than increasing the sample to include different denominations or different churches. But then when it's then unclear how to think about the estimates, like is it correlations or not, or what is it? And so that's why I wanted to have this as clean as possible, as clean of like a causal identification as possible, even though it limits the scope to only living.
Clever way you have been to be able to address it.
Yeah, I think basically research. HR, you can't do everything. So you do something that others can continue. So basically what happened was a structure that Living Faith has, having an outreach office, and then was willing to give us a database, which we use to harvest samples that we can do phone call. So one is logistic, he has mentioned, also manageability, but to manage what you can do. I'd like to do something small and do it well than do something large and not do it well. Okay, there's one question here. We are planning to go.
Oh, that's right. Let me answer that.
Okay, I can't remember.
So the question on why the question that I had answered is like why is it a problem to do for research or for doing causal inference that people who go to church are different compared to people who do not go. And the issue is that there's selection. Like if we would take the correlation between some of the outcomes that I've looked at and church attendance, for example, we wouldn't know is this, and we would find a difference. We wouldn't know is this difference because church attendance has an effect on these outcomes, or is it because different people select to go to church in the first place? And so imagine church has no effect on people's lives and whatever, in a hypothetical scenario, like a thought experiment. But different people go to church compared to those who do not. Then you would find an effect. If you would find a correlation between church attendance and some outcomes of interest that are not driven by the impact of the church, but driven by underlying differences in individuals who attend church compared to those who do not. And that is an issue for establishing causality and estimating causal effects. And that's the issue that we face in doing this sort of research.
Okay, there's one question here, similar to what we asked before. Your topic is determinants and implications of Pentecostal movement in Africa. Evidence from Nigeria. We have 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. and each is dominated by different Pentecostal churches. Which of the zones did you use to quantify Nigeria? The one that okay, and in addition, I would have preferred you stick to some states in the geopolitical zone to capture Nigeria. I think I can help you with that. We can have that. Okay. All right. Okay. I think similar to what we have asked earlier. One thing again is clear that the Living Church operates in almost every city in Nigeria, almost in every not almost in every state in Nigeria. We have that data. Just to also put in context, we went to Living Faith right in Abuja. We have the data of churches planted. If you follow the Living Church in 2020, the president churches, new churches. In 2021, planted 39 churches across all the states. And one thing again is that the model for Living Faith Church that whatever is being preached in Faith Tabernacle is preached in all of the churches. For example, you have Covenant of Open Doors in one headquarters here in Ogun State. The same topic is being treated in all of the stations across. So having one station like this to which is headquarters to measure similar impact we should see, we expect to see across in all of those states where Living Faith operates. So having at one base that West now is a replica of what operates in other Living Faith churches across every city, across every state in Nigeria. And also, I don't know if this has answered your question. Again, that's a lot of can't do everything in one research anyway, but this is just to give you an idea that the model of Living Faith Church, every topic is being preached, and the particular Sunday is being preached across every, both within and outside the country, where Living Faith Church are preached. The same like college syllabus, the same topic, the same content, the same theme of the month, same theme of the particular Sunday. So thanks a lot. Okay, we want to close later by 3:30, so let's have a few minutes. So can take good time and others. Not very best. Okay. Which are okay.
I think you want action.
Okay, great question.
My question, I just wanted to make a suggestion.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Regarding scope constraints, so I was just thinking if you could just add it to you or maybe when you're making a presentation just to use the generalization of the findings so that you'd avoid the question of can this be used to generalize the whole of Nigeria and the whole of the Pentecostal. So just mention it as a constraint of the study that this work was based only on living faith, and that might reduce the generalization of the finding of all Pentecostal.
Yes, it's really not the point I can take it.
Yeah, so the conclusion or even the scope of the study. Yes, that was best need bettering.
So it is vital. I was almost going to say that, but when Prof talked about it, that he should look at the title of his work. If you come to Nigeria, whenever you bring this, people will talk about that because you can't confidently tell them that this is
evidence for living.
Yes, so it should be.
HR.
Okay, just one last question. I wanted to know what were the limitations we used to study, because he didn't mention it during the presentation.
Okay, you have seen them.
From his own part, like what were the limitations he had?
No, I mean, okay, I should have been more explicit. I tried to make it clear that, like, it was a case study of. I think I said this at the beginning also. There was like a case study of living faith, and I mean that clearly is like a limitation that all these influences are drawn from one denomination. Second limitation that I think is important is that we only have two of them. Like in an ideal scenario, I would have liked to follow up with people a much closer time span. So maybe like every month or in an ideal scenario, like every week, and see, you know, how something's changed. So that's a limitation. Another limitation is that we only have phone interviews. I would have liked to use the survey in person, or maybe like administer some behavioral games where stakes are actually real and people like, you know, they play like a game and like win actually some money depending on like how they play. I think that would have been more reliable than just phone interviews. It wasn't possible for various reasons. So that I think is another limitation. And then I think the limitation also is, to some extent, like it is unclear, and like example is too small to make any statement. It's unclear, like people are converting from very different denominations. Like I had some people who were Catholic before, many people convert to from a different Pentecostal denomination that they attended before. And because I don't have a lot of data before they join Living Faith, I don't know like what is changing at the intensive margin. So like, you know, what the change is just driven by, you know, maybe attending churches more often or whatever, increasing your religious engagement compared to difference in things that are taught or preached. That I think is a final limitation on this side.
Okay. There's no other, so. Kuche, bring our next thing. Okay, it is right.
The mic.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. What? Well, since we're talking about religion, I don't think it's not. Let us start by thanking the Almighty God for making today a reality and for keeping us alive to see this day. It was proposed and God brought it to pass. I also want to thank the leadership of the Living Faith Church for allowing this research to be done. I must admit that it's a contemporary issue. And the issue of religion is often shied away from. But I think this is a bold step that will generate further researches. So I want to thank the leadership of the church for allowing Mr. Daniel to carry out this research and make the church as a case study. I also want to thank CEPDeR and DIaDeRC, and able chair is here, former chair CEPDeR and the chair DIaDeRC is here. Thank you for the collaboration. Thank you for the support you've given to Mr. Daniel. I also want to thank those joining us all from all over the world. Thank you for joining this presentation. It's an academic discourse. I know we have all gained one thing or the other from this presentation. I want to thank our erudite professor in the department, Professor Alege, for creating time to join this presentation online. And also want to thank all my colleagues, both in the department and outside the department, that have taken our time to either join online or be physically present here. So thank you all for the support that you've been giving the department all along. Finally, let me thank the researcher himself, Mr. Daniel. He's not a stranger to us. I know he's coming because of this research. Thank you for giving us this wonderful presentation, and we hope that by God's grace, this will be an eye-opener to
make the religion, to improve the religious status of Nigeria. So thank you for the research, and we enjoyed your presentation this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Opa is here, please. Okay. Is the Bible here with me?